I think Elizabeth Warren is just awful. I really don't like her. And it's not so much about the Native American thing because, like, I think it's kind of a silly thing to bring up. But she got roasted hard and called Rachel Dolezal. If you don't know who Rachel Dolezal is, she was apparently a white woman pretending to be black. How that happens, I have no idea. And she, like, worked for, like, an NAACP chapter. And now she's actually, I guess Rachel Dolezal is claiming to be, like, transracial or something. But the thing I don't like about Elizabeth Warren is that she's a very plastic person. Like, I don't believe anything she says. She's out of touch. She's a wealthy person who doesn't understand the working class. And I think she's the wrong choice. You know, apparently Ocasio-Cortez has endorsed her over Bernie Sanders. I think Elizabeth Warren is bad. I don't like her. I don't think she's sincere. But let's read about why she got roasted and what they said about her when one of these radio hosts said, "You're the original Rachel Dolezal." Damn, that's a slam. But before we get started, check out timcast.com/donate to support my work. There are multiple options to donate. But as always, you can just click the like button, comment below, share the video, and subscribe because engagement is the most important thing to help the channel grow. The story reads, on Friday morning, Elizabeth Warren took some serious hits while appearing on New York City-based radio show The Breakfast Club. Co-host Charlemagne the God told the presidential hopeful she was the original Rachel Dolezal. This is from the Daily Wire, by the way. I don't want to, forget to say that. "I grew up in Oklahoma. I learned about my family the same way most people learned about their family. From my mama and my daddy and my aunts and my uncles, and it's what I believe. But I'm not a person of color, I'm not a citizen of a tribe, and I shouldn't have done it," Warren said when pressed by the co-host about her dubious Native American claims of ancestry. But Warren wasn't out of the woods yet. When the Democrat then tried to steer the conversation elsewhere, she was asked when she stopped believing she was of significant Native heritage and if she had ever benefited from such claims. "How long did you hold on to that? Because there were some reports that you were Native American on your Texas bar license, and that you said you were Native American on some documents. When you were on documents when you were a professor at Harvard," noted Charlemagne. "Why'd you do that?" "It's what I believed. Like I said, it's what I learned from my family," Warren responded. "When did you find out you weren't?" Man, they would not let this go. "Well, I'm not a person of color, I'm not a citizen of a tribe, and tribal citizenship is an important distinction and not something I am." Warren skirted the question before denying that she ever got ahead because of her claims of minority status, and I'm going to stop there and completely disagree. Look, how we quantify or determine whether or not she actually benefited from this, it's probably impossible. But according to Harvard, she was listed as such. On her Texas bar license, she was listed as such. And so, yes, I believe she absolutely benefited, at least among progressive circles. There was some benefit conferred to her, and now she is paying the piper. I think that's the right way to use it. You reap what you sow. But for all the benefits she may or may not have received, for whatever reason she was doing it, I don't believe she was doing it for no reason. She was trying to claim some kind of credibility, and now it's coming back. It's coming back to bite her. "You're kind of like the original Dolezal a little bit," Charlemagne told the Democrat. Rachel Dolezal was a white woman pretending to be black. Ooh, man, that's bad. That is bad. Dolezal was infamously outed as a white woman by her parents after claiming to be black at the time she was the head of an NAACP chapter. This is actually called transracialism. I kid you not, it's a thing. People believe they are different races. It is crazy. But I do believe it's fair to point out there is some nuance in the issue. And my perspective on this comes from my personal history, because for those that don't know, I'm part Korean. So the thing is, when I get flack from the left and the right, and I shouldn't say the left and the right, but the racists of the fringe groups, it makes me realize that, it's hard to really be something without someone coming after you. Because I have people on the left, if I agree with them, I'm mixed. If I disagree, then I'm white. And it makes me realize, what does it even mean for the most part? Because there are some people who are Middle Eastern who just look like any old European person, right? It's hard to know the absolute difference. And I've traveled the world and have been mistaken for a bunch of different ethnicities. So at that point, I'm like, man, what we see in people is completely irrelevant. And that fuels my perspective on the issue. Content of someone's character is way more important. So, but let's read on. She says, "Well, this is what I learned from my family." Again, she keeps saying that. The 2020 presidential contender had long claimed that she was Native, oddly citing her family's high cheekbones and suspect family recipes gathered in a cookbook titled Pow Wow Chow. So basically what we've actually learned is that Not only is Elizabeth Warren the original Rachel Dolezal, not Native American, she's actually culturally appropriating Native culture. In October, however, the senators' released DNA test showed that she's as little as 1/1024th Native American. Using a DNA test to lay claim to any connection to the Cherokee Nation or any tribal nation, even vaguely, is inappropriate and wrong, Cherokee Nation Secretary of State Chuck Hoskin Jr. slammed Warren in the wake of the DNA test. It makes a mockery out of DNA tests and its legitimate uses, while also dishonoring legitimate tribal governments and their citizens, whose ancestors are well documented and whose heritage is proven. And the reason this is important is that being Native American is not about what you look like or your DNA. It's about being a part of the tribe, because there are people who are European who joined, became part of tribes or intermarried, and there are people who have very little DNA, of the indigenous, but are still historically and familiar and part of families that are in those tribes and have tribal citizenship. And I believe there was even an instance like 10 or 20 years ago where Americans were granted, I don't know if they're still allowed to, or if it's been a long time since I read this, but you could actually get tribal citizenship by renouncing American citizenship. That was something I read about. I don't know if it's true, but it was like some libertarian-esque rumor that was going around. Maybe not. The point is, becoming a Native American has less to do with your DNA, at least according to these statements, and I think that's fair. They say, the Democrat has also been branded by President Donald Trump as Pocahontas over the exaggerated claims. Now that her claims of being of Indian heritage have turned out to be a scam and a lie, Elizabeth Warren should apologize for perpetrating this fraud against the American public. Trump posed in an October tweet. Harvard called her a person of color, amazing con, and would not have taken her otherwise. So we have this tweet, and I'll just play this really quick. I'm not going to boost the audio or anything. You can just see the kind of reaction. Look at it. Look at his face. He's not having it. And I also want to add, I have a lot of respect for people who typically align more on the left, calling out people on the left who do this. And I'm gonna do what I think is kind of an unfair honorable mention in the story that I want to point something out. This is an old story. It's about Shaun King, and I want to talk a little bit about the nuance of race and issues like this. In this story from the Daily Mail, they say he's no Rachel Dolezal. Shaun King's wife defends her husband over claims he lied about his race and family. As family member confirms both his parents are white. Shaun King is a really interesting character in this whole debate. His parents are white. His brother's white. However, he claims in his family history that his mother cheated on her father. I don't know if that's true or fair. And the only thing that really makes Shaun King look like he might be partially not white is that he cuts his hair in a very specific way. If he didn't cut his hair that way, he would look like any regular old white dude. Notably, his mustache, you can see he shaves the top and the sides and keeps this little thin line, and he keeps his hair, shaved really, really low. But here's the thing. I'm gonna leave it to Shaun King, and I'm gonna say, I don't care about this stuff. I don't care if Rachel, if Rachel Dolezal says whatever. I don't care if Elizabeth Warren says whatever. I think cultural appropriation is silly. And, when it comes to the issue of Shaun King, if he says that's what his family is, then whatever, man, I don't care. If people are cool with it, they're cool with it. Personally, I think it's all silly. And for me, it's an interesting debate in the idea of transracialism in that, when I grew up, I never really identified as white or anything like that. It didn't make sense. It didn't exist. I grew up with a bunch of different friends of different races and ethnic backgrounds, so there was no group that we were like, we're white. I had a friend who was Filipino. I had a friend who was Mexican. I had a friend who was an immigrant from Eastern Europe. I had, friends from, of every background. And so the only real identity we had were, we're dudes, skateboarders in Chicago who skate. And there was no, there's no real identity. And I feel like over the past several years, identity is being forced on people. They people on the alt-right, they call it the racial awakening. I think it's silly and dumb because we actually did well to get over it for a long time. And now it's being reawakened by the left, not the right. So for me, I was thinking about what makes you a race, right? If you're 1% Native American, can you identify that way? Who gets to determine whether you can or you can't? It's really strange, right? Is there a percentage? What's the line? And that's why I think, you know what, man? The whole thing is dumb. It's dumb. But in the instance of Elizabeth Warren, the reason this is pertinent is that the left are the ones who are very strict and stringent. And it's very strange to see Shaun King receive very little scrutiny from the left, and then Rachel Dolezal receive a ton of scrutiny from the left. I guess the only difference is When Rachel Dolezal was called out for having white parents, she just kind of like didn't answer the question. She could have easily said, my parents cheated on each other, like Sean King did. Maybe Sean King's telling the truth. I don't know. So again, I think it's it's kind of dumb, whatever. But it is funny to see. It is interesting to see that Warren's being called out by people on the left. So that's what it is. Thanks for hanging out. Stick around. I got one more segment coming up in a few minutes, and I will see you shortly.